I'm Eileen, 32, and I built my Boston hair salon from nothing into an award-winning business. Tonight should have been my proudest moment, receiving the Small Business of the Year award at the charity gala. Instead, my mother Vivian publicly humiliated me with her cruel joke. If she really wanted to help, she'd shave her head bald too, not just play with hair all day. The table fell silent until Marcus, my creative director, stood up. "You have no right," he told my mother, and everything changed. If you're watching this video, I'd love to know where you're viewing from. Take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself. Sometimes the most unexpected moments can transform our lives forever. Hair has always been my canvas. As a little girl, I would spend hours styling my doll's hair, creating elaborate updos and colorful arrangements that existed only in my imagination. By middle school, I was the unofficial hairstylist for all my friends before school dances and special events. I remember the joy I felt transforming my best friend Lisa before our 8th grade formal, turning her unruly curls into an elegant updo that made her eyes shine with confidence. That was the moment I knew I wanted to do this forever, to give people that feeling of seeing themselves transformed and beautiful. My mother Vivian never understood this passion. A corporate attorney with a corner office and a wardrobe of power suits, she had very specific ideas about what constituted a respectable profession. Art, creativity, and service industries were not on that list. "Eileen, you're wasting your potential," she would say, shaking her head as she found me practicing French braids on my younger cousin. "You have a brain. Use it for something that matters." These comments started when I was young and only intensified as I grew older. While other parents proudly displayed their children's artwork on the refrigerator, my mother would sigh at my sketches of hairstyles and suggest I focus more on my math homework. When I won a regional styling competition in high school, my father Robert came alone to cheer me on. My mother had an unavoidable client meeting. My father was different. Quieter, less forceful than my mother, he would squeeze my shoulder encouragingly when Vivian wasn't looking and whisper, "Do what makes you happy, kiddo." A high school history teacher, he didn't share my mother's prestige or salary, but he understood the value of passion. Still, he rarely contradicted my mother directly, leading to a household where her opinions dominated. After high school, the battle intensified when I announced I wanted to attend beauty school instead of the liberal arts college my mother had chosen for me. "Absolutely not," Vivian declared over dinner, her fork clattering against her plate. "I will not pay for you to learn to cut hair. That's not an education, it's a hobby." "It's what I want to do," I insisted, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "It's what I'm good at." "Being good at playing with hair is not a life skill, Eileen. It's childish." My father cleared his throat. "Viv, maybe we should—" "No, Robert. We agreed our daughter would go to college. End of discussion." The argument continued for weeks until finally I made a decision. I would put myself through beauty school. I moved out of my parents' comfortable suburban home and into a tiny apartment with 3 roommates. I worked mornings at a coffee shop, attended beauty school during the day, and waited tables at night. I was exhausted, but for the first time I was following my own path. Beauty school was where I met Jasmine, now my senior stylist and best friend. With her vibrant personality and fearless approach to color, she complemented my more technical precision cutting skills perfectly. We bonded over late-night study sessions and shared dreams of someday opening our own salon. "Your mother is wrong," Jasmine told me one night after I'd received yet another disapproving phone call from Vivian. "What we do matters. We help people feel good about themselves. How many lawyers can say that after graduation we both found jobs at an upscale salon in downtown Boston?" I soaked up everything I could learn, building a loyal clientele who appreciated my ability to listen and translate their desires into reality. I saved every penny, working toward the dream that still seemed impossible, my own salon. 3 years later, with a small business loan and my entire savings, I opened Transformations in a tiny storefront with just 3 styling chairs. My father came to the grand opening bringing a small potted plant and a card that simply said, "I'm proud of you." My mother sent a text message claiming a court case had kept her away. Transformations grew slowly but steadily. I hired Jasmine first, then Dion to manage the front desk and bookings. With his organizational skills and warm personality, Dion quickly became the heart of our operation, remembering every client's birthday, children's names, and preferred beverages. Marcus joined us next, a brilliant creative stylist with an avant-garde flair that attracted a younger, trendier clientele. With his wild blue hair, the color changed monthly, and sleeve tattoos, he didn't look like someone with a heart of gold, but beneath the edgy exterior was a young man who had escaped a broken home and found family in our salon team. Taylor was our newest addition, a technically gifted young stylist fresh out of beauty school who reminded me of myself. Talented but lacking confidence due to a lifetime of being told her passion wasn't valuable enough. Over 7 years, Transformations expanded 3 times. We moved to a beautiful historic building in Boston's Back Bay neighborhood, renovating the space into an elegant 15-chair salon with additional spa services. Our client list grew to include local celebrities, politicians, and business leaders. More importantly to me, we established a reputation for community involvement, offering free services to cancer patients, domestic violence survivors, and job seekers needing to make good impressions at interviews. The nomination for Small Business of the Year from the Boston Chamber of Commerce felt like validation of everything we had built. When the official invitation arrived for the annual charity gala, embossed with gold lettering and promising an evening of recognition among Boston's business elite, I felt a surge of both pride and anxiety. Would this finally be enough to make my mother see the value in what I had created? "You should invite them," Jasmine said when I mentioned my dilemma during our weekly planning meeting. "Your dad would love to see you recognized like this. And my mom would find some way to diminish it," I replied, twisting a strand of my chestnut hair around my finger, a nervous habit from childhood. "Maybe seeing you honored by the actual Chamber of Commerce will finally make her understand this isn't just playing with hair," Marcus added, looking up from the appointment book. "She can't argue with success." "You'd be surprised," I muttered, but I sent the invitation anyway with a brief note explaining the honor and hoping they could attend. To my surprise, my father called immediately to accept, and even my mother agreed to come. "Your father insists," she said, her tone suggesting she was doing me a favor. "I suppose we should see this salon everyone's talking about." "You've never even been to my salon?" I asked, genuinely shocked. A pause. "I've been busy, Aileen. Some of us have demanding careers." The familiar sting of her dismissal made me regret the invitation instantly, but it was too late to rescind it. For the next 2 weeks, I threw myself into preparations for the gala, determined to present a perfect image of success that even my mother couldn't criticize. The team helped me choose a sophisticated emerald green dress that complemented my eyes, and Jasmine created an elegant updo that showcased our salon's technical skills without being overly showy. We prepared promotional materials, highlighting our community work and business growth, for the display table each nominated business would have in the reception area. The night before the gala, I couldn't sleep. I stood in front of my apartment mirror practicing my acceptance speech and trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. "What if she finds some way to ruin this too?" I whispered to my reflection. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasmine. "Stop overthinking. Tomorrow is your night. We've got your back. Sleep." I smiled despite my anxiety. Whatever happened with my mother, I had built a family of choice who understood and valued me. That would have to be enough. The Boston Harbor Hotel ballroom took my breath away as my team and I entered through its grand doors. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over everything, and floor-to-ceiling windows offered spectacular views of the harbor at sunset. Round tables draped in crisp white linens filled the space, each adorned with elegant centerpieces of white roses and blue hydrangeas. A stage with a podium stood at the front, flanked by large screens currently displaying the Chamber of Commerce logo. "Wow," Taylor whispered beside me, her eyes wide. At 24, this was her first formal business event, and she looked both beautiful and terrified in her navy blue dress. "There are so many important people here, and we belong here just as much as they do." I reminded her gently. Remember that. Dion adjusted his bow tie and gave us a confident smile. Let's go set up our display table. Show these suits what transformations is all about. We made our way to our assigned table in the reception area, where businesses could showcase their work before the formal dinner began. Marcus and I had spent hours designing a display that balanced professionalism with creativity. Photos of our most impressive transformations were arranged in a beautiful collage alongside testimonials from clients whose lives had been impacted by our work. A digital frame cycled through images of our community outreach events, cancer patients receiving wigs we had styled, homeless individuals getting free haircuts before job interviews, the monthly support group we hosted in our salon after hours. This looks amazing, Jasmine said as we put the final touches on the display. No one could look at this and think what we do is frivolous. I hope she was right. As guests began to arrive and circulate through the reception area, I was pleasantly surprised by the positive reactions to our display. Other business owners stopped to chat, complimenting the salon's growth and our community initiatives. The mayor himself paused at our table, recognizing me from a charity event where we had provided services. Transformations. I've heard wonderful things, he said, shaking my hand warmly. My wife goes to your salon, says you've changed her life with that layered cut. I laughed, genuinely delighted. We aim for life-changing hair, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for stopping by. As the reception continued, I found myself relaxing and even enjoying the networking. Several business owners expressed interest in partnering with the salon for future charity events, and a local news reporter took notes for a potential feature story. I was deep in conversation with the director of a women's shelter when I felt a tap on my shoulder. There she is, my successful daughter. My father's voice was warm as I turned to face my parents. He looked handsome in his rarely worn suit, his smile genuine as he pulled me into a hug. My mother stood beside him, elegant as always, in a tailored black dress, her blonde hair in its signature perfect bob. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she air-kissed my cheek. Eileen, this is quite the affair. Mom, Dad, I'm so glad you could make it, I said, meaning it more for my father than my mother. Let me introduce you to my team. I guided them through introductions to Jasmine, Marcus, Dion, and Taylor, each of whom greeted my parents with the perfect balance of professionalism and warmth. My father engaged them all in genuine conversation, asking questions about their specialties and complimenting their contributions to the salon's success. My mother nodded politely but seemed more interested in scanning the room to see who else was attending. Is that Judge Harriman? She asked, squinting across the ballroom. I didn't know he would be here. Mom, did you see our display? I asked, trying to redirect her attention. We've included photos from our cancer support program. We provide free wig styling and head shaving services for patients undergoing chemotherapy. She murmured, clearly distracted. That's nice, dear. Robert, we should go say hello to the Harrimans before dinner. My father gave me an apologetic look. We'll catch up more at dinner, kiddo. Save us seats at your table. I nodded, trying not to show my disappointment. Some things never changed. Jasmine squeezed my arm after they walked away. Your dad seems sweet. He is, I agreed. He's always been supportive in his own quiet way. And your mom is exactly as advertised, Marcus added dryly. Before I could respond, the chamber president announced that dinner would be served and guests should find their assigned tables. We made our way to table 12, where placards indicated seating arrangements. I was placed between my father and Jasmine, with my mother across from me. Marcus, Dion, and Taylor filled the remaining seats along with the owner of a local bakery who was also nominated for an award. As servers brought out the first course, a delicate spring salad with goat cheese and candied pecans. Conversation flowed easily around most of the table. My father chatted amicably with Dion about the challenges of managing client expectations, while Jasmine engaged the baker in a discussion about possible cross-promotions between our businesses. Taylor was uncharacteristically quiet, clearly intimidated by the formal setting, while Marcus made valiant attempts to draw my mother into conversation. Mrs. Crawford, Eileen tells us you're a corporate attorney. That must be fascinating work, he offered. It's demanding, my mother replied, but important. I specialize in mergers and acquisitions for technology companies. Very complex legal territory. I can imagine, Marcus nodded. We have our own complex challenges in the salon world, though different in nature. Eileen has navigated some tricky business expansions brilliantly. My mother took a sip of wine. Yes, well, cutting hair isn't quite the same as negotiating multi-million-dollar deals, is it? I felt myself tense, but Marcus kept his cool. Different skills, certainly. Eileen manages a staff of 18, now handles all the business operations, and still maintains her own client list, plus the community outreach programs. I'd say that's pretty impressive multitasking. My mother offered a tight smile, but didn't respond directly. The main course arrived, filet mignon with truffle mashed potatoes and asparagus, providing a momentary distraction from the uncomfortable exchange. My father leaned close to me. The salon sounds like it's doing really well, Eileen. I had no idea you had so many employees now. We've grown a lot this past year, I told him, grateful for his interest. We're actually looking to add spa space in the building next door. The bank has already approved the expansion loan. That's wonderful, he said sincerely. I always knew you would make this work. You've had the touch since you were little. Before I could respond, the lights dimmed slightly, and the chamber president approached the podium on stage. The small business spotlight segment was about to begin, featuring short video presentations about each nominated business, followed by brief acceptance speeches from the owners. My heart raced as I watched the videos for other nominees: a family-owned bakery, an innovative tech startup, a sustainable clothing boutique. Then suddenly, transformations appeared on the screen. The professionally produced video showcased our salon's journey from tiny startup to successful enterprise, highlighting our staff's technical excellence and our community impact programs. I watched, filled with pride, as clients on screen talked about how our salon had helped them through difficult times. A cancer survivor discussing how our head shaving service had empowered her to take control of her hair loss. A domestic violence survivor explaining how a new look had helped her reclaim her identity. A transgender teenager describing how the right haircut had finally allowed him to see his true self in the mirror. This is really impressive, my father whispered, squeezing my hand under the table. I glanced at my mother, hoping to see some recognition in her expression, but she was cutting her steak with methodical precision, occasionally glancing at the screen with what appeared to be forced interest. As the video concluded, applause filled the room, and the chamber president called me to the stage. On shaky legs, I made my way to the podium, the spotlight momentarily blinding as I looked out at the audience. Thank you, President Collins, and thank you to the chamber for this incredible honor. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. When I opened Transformation 7 years ago, I had 3 chairs, 2 employees, and one big dream: to create a space where people could transform not just their appearance, but how they felt about themselves. I continued my prepared speech, talking about our growth, our philosophy, and our commitment to the Boston community. I thanked my amazing team, who are truly family to me, and concluded with a brief acknowledgement of my parents for their support throughout my journey. It wasn't entirely true, but it felt like the right thing to say in the moment. As I returned to the table amid warm applause, I felt a surge of accomplishment. Whatever my mother thought, the business community of Boston recognized the value of what we had built. That validation meant something. Beautiful speech, boss, Dion said as I sat down. Perfectly said, Jasmine agreed, raising her wine glass in a small toast. My father was beaming with evident pride. You were wonderful, kiddo. Even my mother offered what seemed like a genuine comment. You spoke very well, Eileen. Very poised. I felt a flicker of hope at her words. Maybe this evening would be a turning point after all. As dessert was served, an elaborate chocolate creation that had Taylor taking photos for inspiration, the woman from the bakery leaned across the table toward me. I was really moved by your video, she said, especially the work you do with cancer patients. My sister went through breast cancer last year, and having to lose her hair was almost harder for her than the diagnosis itself. It's incredibly traumatic for many patients, I agreed. Hair is so tied to identity and femininity in our culture. We try to make the process of losing it a bit more empowering. That's why we offer head shaving ceremonies, Jasmine added. We let the client take control of the process, invite family for support if they want, make it a moment of strength rather than loss. The baker nodded appreciatively. That's beautiful work. Really meaningful. If she really wanted to help, my mother's voice cut through the conversation louder than necessary. She'd shave her head bald too, not just play with hair all day. The table fell silent. I froze my dessert fork suspended midair as I processed my mother's words. Had she really just said that? Here in this moment that should have been a professional triumph. She laughed a dismissive sound that made it clear she thought she'd made a clever joke. I'm just saying, if it's such meaningful work, why not go all the way? I felt heat rising to my face as eyes around the table darted between my mother and me. The baker looked mortified on my behalf. My father stared down at his plate. Mom, I managed my voice barely audible. This isn't the place for— Oh, lighten up, Aileen, she interrupted. It was just a little joke. You've always been so sensitive. I swallowed hard, fighting back the tears threatening to form. 7 years building a business, countless hours of hard work recognition from the entire Boston business community, and my mother could still reduce me to feeling like an inadequate child with a single comment. The heavy silence continued uncomfortable and oppressive. I couldn't look up from my plate, couldn't bear to see the pity in everyone's eyes. This was supposed to be my moment of pride, of validation, and instead I was shrinking into myself just as I always did around Vivian. Then from beside me, a chair scraped against the floor as someone stood up. With all due respect, Mrs. Crawford, Marcus's voice was calm but firm. You have no right to belittle what we do when you've never bothered to understand it. I looked up in shock as Marcus stood tall beside me, his usually playful expression replaced with something I'd never seen before. Righteous indignation on my behalf. The entire table had gone still, all eyes on my creative director as he addressed my mother directly. Do you have any idea what your daughter has built? Marcus continued, his voice steady but intense. Have you ever bothered to visit her salon even once in 7 years? Have you seen the lives she's transformed? My mother's face flushed with indignation. I don't think this is appropriate. I don't think publicly mocking your daughter's life's work at an event honoring her success is appropriate either, Marcus countered. But here we are. To my further amazement, Jasmine stood up next to Marcus. Mrs. Crawford, last month, I worked with a 16-year-old girl who was being bullied so severely about her appearance that she had stopped going to school. Eileen spent hours with her, not just cutting her hair, but rebuilding her confidence, making her see her own beauty. That girl is back in school now, thriving. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, but Jasmine wasn't finished. 2 weeks ago, a woman came to us the day after she left her abusive husband. She'd been told for years that she was worthless, ugly, unlovable. Your daughter gave her a new look that helped her see herself differently. She called yesterday to tell us she'd found the courage to apply for a job, something her husband had never allowed. I stared at Jasmine, moved by her passionate defense and the way she remembered every client's story. These were the moments that gave our work meaning, the transformations that went far deeper than hair. Then, to my surprise, Taylor, shy, quiet Taylor, cleared her throat and spoke up. Mrs. Crawford, I grew up in foster care, she said, her voice trembling slightly but growing stronger with each word. I never had nice clothes or trendy haircuts. I felt invisible most of the time. In beauty school, I was talented but had zero confidence. Other salons wouldn't hire me because I didn't have the right look or polish. She looked at me with such gratitude that my throat tightened. Your daughter saw something in me that no one else did. She hired me, mentored me, and gave me a chance to build a career I'm proud of. I have my own apartment now and clients who request me specifically. That's not playing with hair. That's changing lives. Dion, always the most diplomatic member of our team, stood next. Mrs. Crawford, every month we host a support group for cancer patients in our salon after hours. We provide head shaving services, wig styling, and a safe space for people going through the most difficult time in their lives. Eileen stays late for every single session, often missing dinner or personal commitments to ensure our clients feel supported. My mother's expression had shifted from indignation to discomfort as each of my staff members spoke. She glanced around, noticing that nearby tables had fallen quiet, listening to the unexpected confrontation unfolding. "You're all overreacting to a harmless comment," she said defensively, but her voice lacked its usual authority. "It wasn't harmless," my father said, suddenly surprising everyone. "It was cruel, Vivian, and it's not the first time." I stared at my father in disbelief. In all my years, I had never heard him directly contradict my mother in public. "Robert," she hissed, clearly shocked as well. "No, Viv. I've stayed quiet too long." He turned to me, his eyes sad. "I'm sorry, Aileen. I should have stood up for you years ago. Your mother has never understood or respected your passion, and I should have done more than offer quiet support." The baker and other guests at nearby tables were now openly watching our family drama unfold. In any other circumstance, I would have been mortified by the public nature of this confrontation. But something had shifted inside me. Years of diminishment, of seeking approval that never came of swallowing hurt to keep the peace. It all crystallized into a moment of clarity. I stood up slowly, finding my voice at last. "You've never understood me, have you, Mom? You've never even tried." "That's not true," she protested. "I've only ever wanted what's best for you." "No," I said, surprised by how calm I felt. "You've wanted what you think is best. You've wanted me to be a copy of you. But I'm not you. I never wanted your life." "Clearly," she said, gesturing around dismissively, "you chose scissors and shampoo over a real profession." There it was, the fundamental disconnect that had defined our relationship for decades. "This is a real profession," I said firmly. "One that makes people feel better about themselves, that gives them confidence, that sometimes helps them through the worst moments of their lives. When was the last time one of your clients called to say you changed their life? When was the last time someone cried with gratitude after a meeting with you?" My mother stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I will not sit here and be attacked by my own daughter and her employees. Robert, we're leaving." My father hesitated, looking between his wife and me. "Go if you want, Mom," I said, maintaining my composure. "But know this, I am proud of what I've built. I'm proud of the lives we've touched. I'm proud of the business that the Chamber of Commerce just honored. The only person in this room who isn't proud of me is you, and I'm finally realizing that's your loss, not mine." For a moment, something flashed in my mother's eyes, hurt perhaps, or surprise at my newfound assertiveness. But it was quickly replaced by her familiar, cold dignity. "This is ridiculous. Come, Robert." To my mother's visible shock, my father shook his head. "No, Vivian. I'm staying with Eileen. We'll talk at home." My mother's face flushed deeper, and without another word, she grabbed her clutch and stormed toward the exit. The silence that followed her departure was broken by the chamber president approaching our table. "Is everything all right over here?" she asked, concern evident in her voice. I took a deep breath. "Yes, thank you. Just a family disagreement. I apologize for the disruption." "Not at all," she said kindly. "These events can bring up all sorts of emotions. Your video presentation was incredibly moving, by the way. The work you're doing in the community is exactly what we want to celebrate." As she moved on to another table, I sank back into my chair, suddenly aware of the emotional toll of the confrontation. My hands were shaking slightly. "I'm so sorry about that," I said to the baker and others at nearby tables who had witnessed the scene. "Don't apologize," the baker said firmly. "Your team was right to stand up for you. What you do matters." My father put his arm around my shoulders. "I'm proud of you, kiddo. Not just for the business you've built, but for finally standing up for yourself. I should have done it for you long ago." "Thank you, Dad," I whispered, leaning into his embrace for a moment. Marcus raised his water glass in a toast. "To Eileen, the best boss, the best stylist, and now officially the best at establishing boundaries. The tension broke as everyone at the table laughed, and I felt a strange mixture of emotions. Embarrassment at the public nature of the confrontation, relief at finally speaking my truth, sadness about my mother's continuing disapproval, but overwhelming gratitude for the family I had built for myself and my salon team. As the event continued around us with awards being presented and speeches made, I found myself processing what had just happened. For the first time in my life, I had directly challenged my mother's dismissal of my choices. For the first time, I hadn't shrunk away or swallowed my hurt. And for the first time, I truly believed that her inability to see my worth was her failing, not mine. The evening wound down, and as we gathered our things to leave the chamber, President approached me again, this time with a local reporter, Ms. Crawford. Would you have time for a few questions about Transformation's community outreach programs? The Globe is doing a feature on businesses that give back. I glanced at my team, who all nodded encouragingly, and my father, who gave me a thumbs up. I'd be happy to, I agreed, straightening my shoulders and stepping into the spotlight. On my own terms, for my own accomplishments, without seeking anyone else's approval. The next morning, I arrived at the salon earlier than usual. After the emotional roller coaster of the previous night, I needed the comfort of the space I had created, the peaceful hour before clients and staff arrived, when I could center myself in the environment that had always felt like home. I moved through the salon, turning on lights, adjusting styling chairs, and checking that everything was in its place. The morning sun streamed through the large front windows, casting a warm glow across the polished hardwood floors and elegant styling stations. The scent of lavender and tea tree from our signature products filled the air. This space, this business was my creation, my success, regardless of what my mother thought. The bell above the door chimed as Dion arrived carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to me, his expression concerned. "You okay, boss? Last night was intense." I accepted the coffee gratefully. "I'm still processing, to be honest. But yeah, I think I'm okay. Better than okay, maybe." "Your team has your back. Always," he said simply, squeezing my shoulder before heading to the reception desk to begin setting up for the day. One by one, the rest of the staff arrived, each checking in on me in their own way. Jasmine brought fresh pastries. For stress eating, Marcus presented me with a ridiculous tiara made of aluminum foil. For the queen of comebacks, and Taylor shyly offered a handmade card signed by everyone saying simply, "We're proud of you." I was hanging up my coat in the back office when my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Breakfast tomorrow. Just you and me. Proud of you, kiddo." Before I could reply, Dion called from the front. "Aileen, you need to see this." I hurried out to find several staff members clustered around Dion's computer at the reception desk. "What's going on?" "You're trending," he said, turning the screen toward me. To my astonishment, a local lifestyle blog had published an article about the previous night's gala with the headline, "Local Salon Owners Team Shows Inspiring Loyalty After Mother's Public Criticism." How did they even know about this? I asked, scanning the article with growing mortification. The piece described the confrontation in surprisingly accurate detail, suggesting that several attendees had shared the story. "Read the comments," Marcus urged, looking delighted. Below the article were dozens of supportive comments. "Transformations did my daughter's hair for prom last year. They treated her like a princess and gave her so much confidence. This salon deserves all the success. I'm a cancer survivor who benefited from their free services during chemo. Eileen personally shaved my head when my hair began falling out. She made one of the worst moments of my life into something empowering. Just booked my first appointment at Transformations after reading this. Any business with staff this loyal must be doing something right." As I read comment after comment, the salon phone began ringing almost constantly. Dion answered, his eyebrows rising with each call. "That was our 5th new client booking in the last hour," he reported after hanging up. They all mentioned the article. "This is crazy," I murmured, still trying to process how our private family drama had become public so quickly. "It's not just the blog," Taylor said, holding up her phone to show me social media posts about the incident. "People are sharing screenshots and adding their own experiences at the salon." "What happens now?" Jasmine asked, as our first clients began arriving. With your mom, I mean. I sighed, tucking my phone away. I honestly don't know. I need to focus on work today, but eventually, we'll have to talk. The day passed in a blur of clients, many of whom mentioned the article or social media posts and offered their support. By closing time, I was emotionally exhausted but also filled with a strange new confidence. Standing up to my mother had been terrifying, but it had also broken a pattern of acquiescence that had defined our relationship for decades. A week passed with no contact from my mother. My father called daily reporting that Vivian was processing and not ready to talk yet. I threw myself into work trying not to dwell on the unresolved situation. Then on a quiet Tuesday morning, my father suggested meeting for coffee at a small cafe halfway between the salon and my parents' home. When I arrived, he was already seated at a corner table, 2 steaming mugs waiting. "Thanks for coming, kiddo," he said, standing to hug me as I approached. "Everything okay, Dad?" I asked, settling into the chair across from him. He sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "I wanted to talk to you about your mother. There are some things you should know." I tensed, preparing for a plea to make peace for the family's sake. "Your mother hasn't always been so rigid," he began, surprising me. "When I first met Vivian in college, she was studying art history." "Art history?" I repeated, unable to reconcile this information with the corporate attorney I knew. "Mom." He nodded, a nostalgic smile crossing his face. "She was passionate about it. Talented, too. Could identify painters by brushstroke techniques, knew all the movements and their historical contexts. She wanted to work in a museum or gallery." "What happened?" I asked, completely blindsided by this revelation. "Her parents," he said simply. "They were a lot like Vivian is now. Practical, status-conscious, focused on respectable careers. They refused to pay for her education unless she switched to something useful. Law school was their idea." I sat back, trying to process this new information. So she gave up art for law because of her parents' pressure. "She did, Maj," he confirmed. "And I think watching you pursue your passion despite her disapproval, it's complicated for her. Part of her admires your determination, the determination she lacked. But another part resents that you've succeeded in following your dreams when she abandoned hers." "That doesn't excuse how she's treated me," I said, though the revelation had softened something inside me. "No, it doesn't," my father agreed, reaching across the table to take my hand. "Nothing excuses that. I'm just trying to help you understand. Your mother is a complex person who made choices she later regretted, and sometimes that regret comes out as bitterness toward those who made different choices." We sat in silence for a moment, sipping our coffee and contemplating this new perspective. "I should have told you sooner," my father finally said. "And I should have stood up to her years ago like your team stood up for you at the gala." "I'm sorry, Eileen." "It's okay, Dad." "It's not," he insisted. "But I'm trying to do better now. I've told your mother that she needs to truly apologize if she wants to maintain a relationship with you. No excuses, no minimizing, no backhanded comments disguised as jokes." I was touched by his support, however belated it might be. "Thank you." As I drove back to the salon after our meeting, my mind raced with this new understanding of my mother. It didn't excuse decades of dismissal and criticism, but it contextualized her behavior in a way that made her seem more human, less the infallible judge I had always perceived her to be. By the time I reached Transformations, an idea had begun to form, one inspired ironically by my mother's cruel joke at the gala. "Team meeting in 10 minutes, I announced as I entered the salon. "I need everyone's input on something important." When my staff had gathered in the break room, I shared what I had learned about my mother's abandoned artistic dreams and then outlined my idea. "I want to host a charity head shaving event," I explained, "for cancer patients, cancer survivors, and anyone who wants to show solidarity. We'll raise money for cancer research, provide free head shaving services, and offer styling for donated hair to be made into wigs." "Turning your mom's nasty comment into something positive." Marcus nodded approvingly. "I love it." "It's perfect," Jasmine agreed. We already do this for individual clients, but making it a public event could raise awareness and funds. We could partner with the local oncology center, Dion suggested, already typing notes on his tablet, and reach out to wig-making charities for the hair donations. Taylor, who had been quiet as usual, suddenly spoke up. What if we also offered free temporary henna crown designs for people who've lost their hair to chemo? Beautiful designs to help them feel adorned and special during a difficult time. Taylor, that's brilliant, I said, watching her face light up at the praise. Let's absolutely include that. The energy in the room was electric as everyone contributed ideas. Within an hour, we had a basic plan outlined. A full-day event at the salon with stations for head-shaving hair donations, henna crowns, wig styling, and professional photos to document people's journey. Local businesses could sponsor with proceeds going to cancer research and support programs. The local news picked up the story after Dion sent out a press release framing it as a positive response to the now viral gala incident. Local salon turns criticism into charity head-shaving event to support cancer patients. As the event took shape over the following weeks, I debated whether to invite my mother. Part of me wanted to show her how I had transformed her hurtful comment into something meaningful. Another part feared another public rejection. You should invite her, Jasmine encouraged during a planning session. Not because she deserves it, but because it's part of your healing. And who knows, maybe seeing what you've created will finally help her understand. After much consideration, I decided Jasmine was right. I needed to extend the invitation regardless of whether my mother accepted. It was about my growth, not her response. The phone call was awkward, to say the least. After 3 weeks of silence, hearing my mother's voice made my stomach tighten. "Hello, Eileen," she said, her tone neutral. "Your father said you might call." "Hi, Mom," I replied, gripping the phone tightly. "I'm calling to invite you to an event we're hosting at the salon next Saturday. It's a charity head-shaving event to support cancer patients and research." A pause. Head shaving. Like I mentioned at the gala. I took a deep breath. Yes, I decided to take your comment and turn it into something positive. Another long silence. Then surprisingly, "That's creative of you." It wasn't exactly enthusiasm, but it wasn't a rejection either. I pressed on, explaining the details of the event, and ending with, "It would mean a lot if you could come. See what we actually do at the salon." "I'll think about it," she said, which was more than I had expected. "Your father will want to attend, I'm sure." "He's already volunteered to help with refreshments," I told her, which drew a short, surprised laugh. "Of course he has." Another pause. "Aileen, about what happened at the gala." I held my breath, wondering if an apology might actually be forthcoming. "We should talk in person sometime," she finished, not quite taking that step. "Yes, we should," I agreed. "The invitation stands, Mom. I hope you'll come." After hanging up, I sat in my office processing the conversation. It hadn't been the reconciliation I might have hoped for, but it was a crack in the wall of silence, a tiny opening that might someday lead to understanding. The day of the charity event dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the outdoor portions we had planned in the small courtyard behind the salon. I arrived at dawn to oversee the final preparations, my stomach fluttering with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. What if no one showed up? What if my mother did show up only to criticize? What if "stop overthinking"? Jasmine interrupted my spiral as she arrived carrying boxes of decorations. "This is going to be amazing." And amazingly it was. By 10 o'clock, a line had formed outside the salon. Cancer patients and survivors came with family members for support. People with long hair arrived to donate inches or feet for wig making. Others simply came to show solidarity or support the cause. We had transformed the salon, setting up stations for different services. Marcus supervised the head-shaving area, where people could choose to have family members participate in the process if they wished. Jasmine managed hair donations, carefully measuring and cutting ponytails to meet the requirements for wig-making charities. Taylor's henna station quickly became the most popular with her intricate, beautiful designs, adorning bald heads with temporary crowns of flowers, mandalas, and personalized symbols of strength. Local businesses had responded enthusiastically to our outreach, donating refreshments prizes for the raffle and funds that would go directly to cancer research. A photographer friend offered free portrait sessions for participants, capturing beautiful, empowering images of people embracing their baldness or celebrating their donations. The atmosphere was joyful, emotional, and deeply moving. I moved through the salon, alternating between helping at various stations and greeting attendees, my heart full as I witnessed the impact of our work. A teenage girl wept as her mother, a breast cancer survivor, had her head shaved in solidarity with a friend newly diagnosed. An elderly man smiled serenely as Taylor adorned his chemo-bald head with a design incorporating his grandchildren's initials. A group of office workers arrived together, all donating their long hair in support of a colleague undergoing treatment. My father had been there since the beginning, proudly wearing a Transformations t-shirt and helping wherever needed. I had given up hope of seeing my mother when around noon I glanced toward the entrance and froze. Vivian Crawford stood in the doorway, looking uncharacteristically uncertain in her casual weekend attire. Pressed khakis and a blue blouse, her perfect bob slightly ruffled by the breeze. Our eyes met across the crowded salon, and for a moment neither of us moved. Then I crossed to her, not sure what to say, but feeling I should acknowledge her presence. "You came," I said simply. "Your father insisted," she replied, but then added, "and I wanted to see what you've created." "Would you like a tour?" I offered, keeping my tone neutral. She nodded and I guided her through the salon, explaining each station and introducing her to clients and staff members. To my surprise, she listened attentively, asking occasional questions about the process or the people we were helping. As we approached Taylor's henna station, a young woman was just finishing her session. She caught sight of us and smiled broadly. "Eileen, you have to see this," she called, turning to show us the intricate design now adorning her bald head. A phoenix rising from flames, the bird's wings extending around the curve of her skull. "It's beautiful, Maya," I said, recognizing her from our cancer support group. "How are you feeling today?" "Powerful," she declared. 6 months cancer-free, and now I have this amazing art to celebrate. Your salon has been such a huge part of my journey." She turned to my mother. "Are you Aileen's mom? You must be so proud of what she's built here. This place saved me when I was at my lowest. Not just the practical help with my hair, but the community, the support." I held my breath, watching my mother's face as she processed Maya's words. Something shifted in her expression, a softening, a recognition. "Yes," she said finally. "I'm Eileen's mother. And yes, this is quite remarkable." Maya beamed, then excused herself to show her design to friends waiting nearby. As she left, my mother turned to me with an unreadable expression. "These people really love you," she observed. "Your staff, your clients. They're like family to me," I said honestly. She winced slightly at the implied comparison, but nodded. "I can see that." We continued the tour in silence, ending at the small stage we had set up for announcements and special moments throughout the day. The event was in full swing now, the salon buzzing with conversation and occasional bursts of applause when someone completed their head shave. "Thank you for coming, Mom," I said, preparing to return to my duties. "It means a lot whether you understand what we do here or not." "I'm trying," she said unexpectedly. "To understand, I mean." Before I could respond, Dion approached with an urgent expression. "Aileen, we need you on stage. It's time for your speech and people are asking about your head shave." I had announced in the promotional materials that I would be shaving my own head as part of the event, both to show solidarity and to demonstrate that beauty exists in many forms. Despite my confidence in the decision, my hand instinctively went to my chestnut waves, which I had grown and maintained for years. "I guess this is it," I said, more to myself than anyone else. "You're really going to shave your head?" my mother asked, looking genuinely surprised. "I am," I confirmed. "It's just hair. It grows back. And it means something to the people here to see me doing this with them, not just for them." She seemed about to say something, then stopped herself. "Good luck with your speech." I made my way to the small stage where Jasmine handed me a microphone. Looking out at the crowd of familiar and new faces, I felt a surge of purpose that pushed aside any nervousness. "Thank you all for coming today," I began. "When we first had the idea for this event, we hoped maybe 20 or 30 people would participate. Looking around now, I'm overwhelmed by the incredible turnout and the generosity of our community." I continued thanking our sponsors, acknowledging the courage of the cancer patients and survivors present, and explaining how the funds raised would be used. Then I shifted to the personal. Some of you may have heard about an incident at a recent Chamber of Commerce gala where someone suggested, not very kindly, that if I really wanted to help cancer patients, I should shave my head bald too, not just play with hair all day. Murmurs rippled through the crowd as many had indeed heard the story. At first, those words hurt, but then I realized something powerful. They could be transformed into action just as we transform hair appearances and sometimes lives here at this salon. So today I'm taking that suggestion literally. I gestured to Marcus, who approached the stage with styling cape clippers and a dedicated look in his eye. My creative director, Marcus, will be doing the honors, but before we begin, I want to say this hair is deeply personal. It's tied to our identity, our self-image, our cultural and personal expression. Losing it involuntarily, as many cancer patients do, can be traumatic and disempowering. What we try to do here is return some of that power, to make the process of change one of choice, rather than victimhood, one of strength rather than loss. As I sat on the stool Marcus had placed center stage, and he draped the cape around my shoulders, I caught sight of my mother at the back of the room. To my surprise, she had not left, but was watching intently, her expression unreadable. "Here we go," Marcus announced, turning on the clippers. "Last chance to back out, boss." I smiled, surprisingly calm. "Not a chance. Let's do this." The buzzing sound filled the salon as Marcus made the first pass through my hair, a strip of chestnut falling to the cape and then to the floor. A cheer went up from the crowd, growing louder with each pass of the clippers. I closed my eyes, focusing on the strange sensation of weight being lifted, of cool air on my scalp, of transformation happening in real time. When Marcus finally stepped back and handed me a mirror, I opened my eyes to see a stranger looking back at me, but one with my eyes, my smile, and a strangely beautiful bare scalp that emphasized the structure of my face in ways I had never noticed before. "What do you think?" Marcus asked, as the crowd waited for my reaction. I ran my hand over the smooth surface of my head and broke into a genuine smile. "I think it's liberating," I said truthfully. "And I think I need Taylor to give me one of her amazing henna designs." The crowd laughed and applauded, and I stood from the stool, still a bit dizzy from the experience, but filled with an unexpected sense of power. As people surged forward to congratulate me or share their own head-shaving experiences, I lost sight of my mother in the crowd. An hour later, after Taylor had adorned my scalp with an intricate design of intertwined vines and flowers that she said represented growth and new beginnings, I was helping at the refreshment table when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find my mother standing there, her eyes reddened as if she'd been crying, something I had rarely seen in my life. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Somewhere private." I nodded, leading her to my small office at the back of the salon and closing the door behind us. For a long moment we just looked at each other, me with my newly bald and henna-adorned head, she with her perfect hair and makeup slightly disrupted by emotion. "I don't know where to begin," she finally said, her voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "Take your time," I replied, sitting on the edge of my desk and gesturing for her to take the chair opposite. "Your father told me he explained about my art history background," she said. I nodded. "He did. What he probably didn't tell you is that I still paint," she confessed. "In secret in a small studio I rent across town. No one knows except your father. I tell everyone I'm working late or attending legal conferences." This revelation stunned me. "You've been painting all this time, for how long?" "I never really stopped," she admitted. "Even through law school, even while building my career and raising you, I kept creating in private. Small pieces, nothing ambitious. It was the only thing that kept me balanced. Why keep it secret? I asked, though I was beginning to understand. Because it felt like failure, she said simply. Like I had given in to my parents' demands, abandoned my real passion, taken the practical path, and admitting I still needed art would be admitting they were wrong, that I was wrong to give it up. And seeing me follow my passion, I began. It was complicated, she acknowledged. Part of me was proud of your determination, your willingness to defy expectations, including mine. But another part was resentful, I suppose, jealous even. You had the courage I lacked. I never knew, I said softly. All these years I thought you genuinely believed creative careers were worthless. I convinced myself they were because it was easier than admitting I had compromised something essential in myself. She glanced up at me, her eyes taking in my transformed appearance. What you did today, shaving your head like that, it was brave and meaningful. I can see now what your work means to these people. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was more vulnerability than my mother had ever shown me. I decided to meet her halfway. Would you like to show me your art sometime? I asked. She looked surprised, then cautiously hopeful. You'd want to see it. Of course. It's part of who you are, a part I never knew existed. I'd like that, she said, a small smile forming. And maybe I could help today if you need an extra pair of hands somewhere. I couldn't help the surprise that showed on my face, but I quickly recovered. We could always use help at the donation station. They're tracking hair inches and donor information. I'm good with details, she offered. Yes, I agreed. You always have been. As we prepared to return to the event, my mother paused at the door. Aileen, the head shaving. It suits you. You look strong. For the first time in my life, I felt like my mother was actually seeing me, not the daughter she had wished for, but the woman I had become. Thank you, Mom. When we emerged, my father was waiting nearby, his expression hopeful, as he took in our relatively peaceful faces. I left them talking quietly while I returned to my duties, my heart lighter than it had been in years. The rest of the event passed in a blur of activity. More head shaves, more donations, more tears and laughter, and moments of connection. To my ongoing surprise, my mother stayed working diligently at the donation station, occasionally engaging with participants in a way I had never seen her interact with strangers before. At one point, I noticed her helping an elderly woman who had come to have her thin white hair shaved in solidarity with her granddaughter. My mother's hands were gentle as she guided the woman to the styling chair, explaining the process and offering reassurance. By the time we began cleaning up late that evening, we had raised over $20,000 for cancer research, collected enough hair donations to create dozens of wigs, provided head shaving services to nearly 100 people, and created a community of support that would extend far beyond this single day. My team gathered in the break room after the last participant had left, all of us exhausted but exhilarated by the day's success. That, Marcus declared, was the most meaningful thing we've ever done. Agreed, Jasmine said, raising her water bottle in a toast. To Eileen for turning criticism into something beautiful. To all of us, I corrected, including everyone in my gaze. This was a team effort, and I couldn't be prouder of what we've built together. As we toasted our success, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror, bald, henna-crowned, surrounded by my chosen family. In that moment, I felt more beautiful and more powerful than I ever had with a full head of hair. My mother's cruel joke at the gala had been transformed just as we transformed our clients every day, not by changing the essential person, but by helping them see their own strength and beauty in new ways. In seeking to hurt me, she had inadvertently helped me find a deeper purpose and perhaps a path toward healing our fractured relationship. The future remained uncertain. One day of connection couldn't erase decades of misunderstanding and hurt. But as I watched my parents helping with the final cleanup, my father's arm around my mother's shoulders as she pointed out something in the donation ledger, I felt hopeful that transformation was possible, even in the relationships we believe are set in stone. Sometimes it takes losing something, hair certainty approval, to gain something far more valuable, authenticity purpose, and the courage to be exactly who you are meant to be. 1 year has passed since the charity head shaving event that changed so much in my life. Transformation Salon has continued to thrive, expanding into the building next door to add dedicated space for our community outreach programs. The annual head shaving fundraiser is now our signature event, with other salons across Boston joining the initiative. Last month, we were featured in a national magazine's Businesses That Give Back special issue. My relationship with my mother has evolved in ways I never could have imagined. Our reconciliation hasn't been perfect or easy. Decades of patterns don't change overnight. But we're really talking for perhaps the first time in our lives. 6 months ago, Vivian Crawford shocked her colleagues by announcing her early retirement from the law firm where she had been a partner for 20 years. The following week, she signed a lease on a small art studio in a renovated warehouse building that houses several creative businesses. At 60, my mother is finally pursuing the passion she abandoned in her youth. Last month, she held her first small gallery showing. Nothing grand, just a collection of her paintings displayed in a local coffee shop. The work was surprisingly good. Vibrant landscapes and abstract pieces that revealed a side of my mother I had never seen. I stood beside her at the opening, watching as strangers admired her work and saw in her eyes the same fulfillment I feel when a client leaves my salon transformed. "I understand now," she told me that night as we locked up the coffee shop. "What you've been trying to tell me all these years about your work. It's not about hair, is it? It's about helping people see themselves differently. Just like your art helps people see the world differently." I agreed. As for me, I eventually grew my hair back, though I keep it shorter now. A pixie cut that Taylor styles for me, changing the color seasonally. The experience of being bald for several months gave me new perspective both personally and professionally. I understand even better now what our clients go through when they make dramatic changes to their appearance, how vulnerable and exposed they can feel, and how important our response is to their experience. My team has remained intact, though their roles have evolved. Marcus now teaches a monthly class for other stylists on working with clients experiencing hair loss. Jasmine spearheaded a partnership with the local women's shelter, providing free services to women rebuilding their lives after leaving abusive situations. Dion has streamlined our operations so efficiently that we've been able to dedicate 1 day a month to providing free services to those who can't afford them. And Taylor, once so shy and uncertain, now confidently leads our henna crown program for cancer patients, her artistic talent bringing joy to people during their most difficult moments. My father has found a new role as well, volunteering his time to help my mother with the business aspects of her art career and occasionally assisting at salon events. The pride in his eyes when he watches either his wife or his daughter pursuing our passions is something I never tire of seeing. Today is the second annual Transformations charity head shaving event, even bigger than last year's. As I stand on the small stage to deliver my opening remarks, I'm struck by how different I feel from a year ago. The salon is packed with returnees from the previous year, new participants, local media, and supporters from throughout the community. Welcome, everyone. I begin looking out at the sea of faces. When we held this event last year, it was born from a moment of hurt and a desire to transform criticism into something meaningful. Today we gather not because of hurt, but because of healing. The healing that comes from community, from purpose, and from embracing change rather than fearing it. As I continue my speech, I spot my mother in the crowd standing beside my father. She looks different now. Her once perfect bob replaced by a bohemian silver-streaked style that better suits the artist she always was beneath the corporate exterior. She catches my eye and smiles a genuine smile that reaches her eyes. After the speech, as participants begin moving to their designated stations, she approaches the stage. "Need an extra volunteer?" she asks. "I thought I might help with the henna designs. Taylor's been giving me lessons." I blink in surprise. "You've been learning henna art?" She nods, seeming almost shy. I find it fascinating. The temporary nature of it, the celebration of change rather than permanence. It's teaching me to see beauty in impermanence. As I watch my mother join Taylor at the henna station, carefully applying intricate designs to the scalp of a cancer survivor. I'm struck by the full circle nature of our journey. The woman who once dismissed my career as playing with hair is now finding meaning in using art to help others feel beautiful during difficult transitions. Throughout the day, I move between stations, assisting where needed, greeting participants, and occasionally stepping back to take in the beautiful chaos of the event. Every person here has a story. The teenager shaving her head in solidarity with her best friend, the cancer survivor celebrating 5 years in remission, the elderly couple donating their thin gray hair together, the young professional using his head as a canvas for Taylor's beautiful designs. Near the end of the event, Marcus finds me by the refreshment table. "We've raised almost twice as much as last year," he reports excitedly, "and the news crew wants a final interview with you before they leave." "Send them over." I agree. "And Marcus, thank you. For everything, especially for standing up for me that night at the gala." He grins, running a hand over his own head, currently sporting a vibrant purple mohawk. "Best thing I ever did. Look what came from it." As I prepare for the interview, I catch sight of my reflection in one of the salon mirrors, confident, purposeful, surrounded by a community I helped build. I think about the journey of the past year, about transformations both physical and emotional, about finding strength in vulnerability. My mother's cruel joke, "shave her head bald," had been intended to diminish me, to reduce my life's work to something trivial. Instead, it became the catalyst for deeper understanding, for community impact, and ultimately for healing. By embracing the very thing meant to hurt me, I had transformed it into something powerful. That, after all, is what we do at Transformations every day. Help people take what they have been given, what they may even see as a limitation or flaw, and transform it into something beautiful, something meaningful, something that tells their unique story. As I step forward for the interview, I silently thank every person who has been part of this journey. My loyal team, who stood up for me when I couldn't stand up for myself, my father who finally found his voice, my mother who is learning, however late in life, to embrace creativity and authenticity, and every client who has trusted us with their transformation. Some transformations happen in an instant: a haircut, a color change, a head shave. Others take time: rebuilding confidence, healing relationships, finding purpose. But all of them matter. All of them have the power to change lives, one transformation at a time. I'd love to hear about a time when you stood up for yourself, or someone stood up for you when you needed it most. How did it change your life? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. Thank you for being part of this journey with me, and remember, true beauty comes from embracing exactly who you are, bald head and all.